been quite a busy week at Kenilworth Road, hasn't it? With ins, outs, matches and all sorts going on. So we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive recap what's happened over not just the last week, but the last month or so. And alongside me to do that, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe and the outgoing Trust chairman Tony Murray. Gents, ready to deep dive into what's going on right now?
Of course, I'm ready to hold my breath, Kev. Right off the top.
And we'll do all of that right after this intro.
I believe our supporters are the best supporters in the country.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the award-winning, longest-running Luton Town podcast, having scooped bronze in the Best Football League podcast category in the Football Content Awards. This season, the show is in association with Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I mentioned before the intro, we're doing a little bit of a deep dive on everything that's gone on, mostly around the transfer window, but we'll cover a couple of other topics. We put a post out on social media earlier asking for your thoughts on the transfer window, whether you're more confident that the town can stay up as a result of it, whether you're less, and we'll get the thoughts of myself, Jimbo, and as I said before the intro, the outgoing Trust chairman, Tony Murray. Tony, will come on to that at the end of the podcast because clearly that's a big thing and it's only right that we reflect on that. But first of all, where are you with regards to January? Happy with the business that was done? Would you have liked to have seen a bit more, or are you perfectly content?
I'm basically happy with what's happened. I mean, Gary said right at the start of it that we were going to be aggressive, and I thought we would get 2 or 3 in, but actually 8 in total is pretty good. So, and some of the signings are really good.
Yeah, they are. We will go through, we'll go through all of them. We'll focus more on some than others because obviously we've covered them as we've gone along anyway. But 7 new signings and obviously 8 when Lamine's added to the equation. Jimbo, it started off with Christ Makosso, Isaiah Jones, and then we had that flurry of signings in 1 week, didn't we? Kone Smith, Tele Asgard, and they're going to test my memory again, aren't they? Millie Ali, Josh Bowler, and then finally Lasse Nordås on deadline day. There you go, memory sorted.
You did all right there, mate.
Yep. We won't dwell too much on the earlier ones, other than of those ones, the earlier ones before Lasse. Which one, having seen them all in action now, which one's excited you the most?
Lamine has the potential to be the most exciting for me. But that's maybe because we've seen Isaiah Jones play and seen what he's about, and that is an exciting one in terms of pace. I don't think we've seen everything that he has to offer yet, which is a good thing, and obviously was missing from the weekend and hopefully not for too long. So that's a good one. Kone Smith, we know. And we've only seen 90 minutes of Tele Asgard, but what we saw was good, a good start, and obviously the amount of goals that he scored in a struggling Wigan team. I think that of those players that I've mentioned, there have been some promising signs. We just need everything to gel, and that's probably the key, isn't it? With all of this stuff, it's probably the key. But when January started, you said, let's judge it by the end of it. Let's judge the board and let's judge the transfer business by the end of it. So throwing a question back at you, what do you think?
You know, they were true to their word, weren't they? Gary said when he unveiled Matt Bloomfield that he was going to be aggressive in the transfer market where possible. I think that's fair enough. I think they were. I mean, I've not totaled up all of the transfer fees. It's kind of pointless anyway because most of them are undisclosed, so we don't know for sure. But you've got to be looking at circa 15 million quid at the very least. Even if you use the bottom rate of all of the transfer signings, you could probably get it up to 20 million once add-ons and everything else. For a January transfer window, that is really, really good for Luton at any time. Forget the fact that we've been in the Premier League and all of that. That is a good transfer window. We know January's difficult. Would I have liked us to have brought more in? You, as a fan, you always want one more, don't you? And the longer January went on, I think right back started to become a problematic issue. We heard rumours over the weekend that they were looking at a right back, but obviously that didn't materialise. Not everything is going to. I think coming back to you, probably 2.5, 3 weeks ago when we first started talking about the aggression in the transfer window, we were both keen to stress this squad cannot be rectified in one transfer window. We had gone too far away from where we usually would be, that it was going to need 2. But if we could repair the immediate must replace positions, and for me that was a warrior like centre back who can do all of the talking. Well, as it turns out, Mads Andersen's got the role at the moment, but Cal Naismith was that. That was the first one. Then I wanted to fill a creative sort of midfielder in behind the striker. Tello Asgard's very much that. The fact that Cal can fill the left back void, which I wanted as well, was also key. And then we all of us wanted to see a bit of pace. Well, we've brought that in as well. So I think we've ticked most of the boxes. I would never have expected Luton to have ticked all the boxes in January. There was just too many that was left to fill. It's just not possible. But I can't remember too many transfer windows in total where Luton have brought 7 players in, 8 if you want to include Lamine, even in a summer one. So board have to be commended for what they've done in January, and now it's over to the players and Matt to gel them. Thankfully, we're in the middle of this 10-day break before our next game, so we got the chance to do that. Come out fighting.
Seems to me that this is the start of a transitional period for us and a complete rebuild of the side, which is what we've needed. I think for me, the biggest surprise was Cal Naismith. But he's proved his worth in the past. Yeah, I'm sure at Bristol City he's had a few injury problems. But what's been needed at the back desperately is that voice and the organisational skills, which Cal has got in abundance. So you've got McGuinness, who's still relatively young, and you've got Mads there, and they're going to learn from Cal, which is really good. And of course, one of the problem areas for us has been left back, and of course Cal can play out there. Now, I don't expect him to play every minute of every game that he's here, but his experience and everything is going to be invaluable, and not just on the pitch, off the pitch as well. In the dressing room is going to be great as well. So for me, that was a very, very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it was me. I did not see that. We said it in the last podcast, didn't we? We did not see that coming. Interesting, actually. The Bristol City chairman did a statement over the weekend when he confessed that they've concluded their January business, and he went in the ins and outs of it all. He explained why the players that were allowed to leave late in the window left. And the statement on Cal Naismith was simply that he went to them and he said he's out of contract in the summer. He wants to go and play football somewhere to earn a new contract in the summer. So that's basically them admitting that his time at Bristol City's come to an end. So he fits into the point to prove perfectly on that sort of front. He's going to be trying to earn himself a new contract. And he's only 32, isn't he? Still 4 years left at a really good level, maybe more having had injuries. Sometimes, age and the actual how the body feels are different when they've not played relentlessly over a period of time. I just wonder if he can prove himself here and get an extension here.
Well, that's the goal, isn't it? And I wouldn't say no if he comes in and does the business, and if he's the player that left, great. If he's the player that he says he is, which is better in terms of positional sense and know-how, then yeah, double better. But we'll wait and see on that one. Obviously, the emergence of Mads makes there's some competition, and that's good as well in the centre back positions, because for a very long while, I'm probably exaggerating, but it felt like the entirety of 2024 it was just whoever's available on it to fit in those slots. And obviously the positions have changed now, because we've gone down from 3 centre halves to 2. So we'll wait to see how that one works out as well. But yeah, it is the whole thing. The whole transfer window, I think, has been really positive, because I've had people come up to me and go, "You were really down in the dumps after that Millwall one when you did that podcast."
I'm amazed they noticed, to be honest.
But it felt like that. It felt like the end of the world because of the 2 defeats and how they'd happened, and it felt like there were changes taking place and still weren't getting results. And the only way that we thought that it could change would be to get some bodies in. Now, we were thinking 4, maximum 5, weren't we? But
over the course of the month, weren't we?
Yeah.
We got that in the last week.
Yeah, so they've fulfilled their promise to be aggressive. You can always say, well, you'd have liked to have one more place to be filled or some other person to come in, and that's opinions, isn't it? But they set out to be aggressive, and they've achieved that in getting 8. They probably wanted more. When we know they wanted Kone, and that didn't happen. Whether that can happen in the summer, I think maybe that this might have been the window to get him, and he might be onto clubs with deeper pockets by that point. We'll wait and see. But you know, and all the players that they were linked with that we mentioned in the last podcast, you know, your Joel Wards of your Crystal Palace, which didn't come off, and Lewis O'Brien, and then he went where you get Swansea, didn't he? You know, to be with, you know, linked to all those players is good. And we knew they were scouting abroad as well. Mick Harford said that as much, and Phil Chappell's been out here, there, and everywhere across the globe looking for players. And they've gone and got a fella from Norway who, you know, seems exciting signing. We'll definitely have to wait and see. But it all just feels promising again, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, if he's half as good as the last Norwegian striker that set foot at Kenilworth Road, we'll be laughing, won't we?
Definitely. I've just going back a little bit to the...
It was the last one I was struggling to...
Haaland. Didn't play for us, but he still set foot at Kenilworth Road.
Yeah.
I thought, I was thinking, who is he? Can't be talking about
You ain't
Lars
forgotten
Elstad.
him
He's
about him.
Danish.
You ain't forgotten about him already, have you? He literally tore us 2 new backsides last season.
Well, yeah, our minds have gone blank.
Yeah.
Kev.
But I know I should expect your memory not to have remembered it. You can't remember what happened yesterday.
Well, I asked you about, has any Norwegians played for Luton? And the 2 you went, I went, bloody hell, you have to go back to 1991 and 1995 to remember the last Norwegians that played for Luton.
Yeah, let's hope he's better than Vidar Riise.
Yeah, better than that.
Sure.
But I wanted to just quickly go back to the Kone thing. I was very, very surprised by that, because it's not something that usually happens when Luton are negotiating for a player or trying to get a player, and the fact that we kept up in the bid and going back 3 or 4 times. So it made me wonder, did the club have some sort of indication coming from somewhere, maybe Kone's agent or everything, that he was willing to talk and wanted to come. So I couldn't believe that how, you know, that bid kept going up and up and up, and we kept getting knocked back. And I mean, you just know if these owners at Wycombe must have some money, because, you know, it wasn't that long ago that, you know, the first bid that went in from us, they'd have taken our hands off with it. So I just thought that was something odd was going on there.
I just think we're in a different world now. Luton have got a bit more money behind them, even though people don't think they have. They have. And they're able to do those sorts of things. I just wonder with that particular one, I think, you know, he's obviously going to keep scoring. They've added more bodies and they've strengthened in the window themselves. I expect that they will go up, Wycombe, and then when he's in the Championship, they could flog him for loads more money. So I wonder whether, you know, making that a double figures bid, whether they were ever going to go there, I doubt it. But just to get him and having that player in the door, that becomes a massive asset. But then it's a gamble, because could he be a 1-season wonder? You never know. It's a transfers of risks all over the place, isn't there?
I was just thinking that come the summer, if they don't get promoted, they'll come back to us, go, please Luton, take him. Please Luton, we'll take a lower offer or whatever, you know.
Well, in that regard, then they've played a good bit of poker then, didn't they? Because then they can go, well, we'll give you 5. But I strongly suspect there was a lot of teams seemed to be looking at him, and deeper pockets, they'll come in, and the teams that wouldn't think twice about just going, here's 10 mil for that guy, and we'll see. But, you know, it was a long time before that, and who knows, maybe that's a Norgard.
Norgard? You are still in Brentford, aren't you? Blimey. Nordås.
Yeah. Maybe he comes in, and he marks himself out as a little bit of a cult hero.
Yeah, I mean, he is in. He was the only deadline day signing. We kind of expected 1 or 2 more to come through the door. Didn't really materialise. It was a very weird transfer deadline day, wasn't it? Everything happened in the last hour, apart from Lasse's signing, and that was pretty much confirmed over the weekend anyway. Both from Matt Bloomfield's lack of denial on Saturday to Norwegian media confirming it on Sunday, to him finally appearing on our screens on YouTube and things on Monday. Let's hear a little bit more about Lasse. We'll just quickly talk about him ourselves, but we've got someone who knows a lot more about him than what we do. But 22 years old, 23 later this week, really good age, 6'4", so good size. He strikes me as a little bit of an Elijah Adebayo. We signed him at a very similar age, very similar height and profile. Not necessarily the best scoring statistics down at Walsall, but clearly they saw beyond the bare numbers. Okay, he's probably scored a few more goals at Walsall than what Lasse scored in Norway, but I'm led to believe he's playing for a low-scoring team out there with really, really Baltic conditions where goals don't really come very naturally on a tricky pitch and things. So if he's following in Eli's footsteps, he's clearly got some potential.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, is it possible he's slightly taller than Eli? He's got the build. If you've seen the promotional video of him, he does look good. And the potential link up with Thilo will be good as well. I just think it's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. I mean, having been at Wednesday and watched that game,
you were on the telly.
Yeah, I was, wasn't I?
I saw you on the telly.
I'm still after me image rights.
You get about 20p for them if you like.
Probably, yeah. I was hoping 25 at least, Kev. It's interesting, isn't it? Because at one time, you'd look at any club signing a forward of that height, you'd be looking, he's got to be a cart horse, and he's just there to get his head on the end of crosses and cause mayhem. But the lad looks as if he's got a bit about him, and the age he is as well. He's young, and there's plenty to work with. He seems to have a lot of potential, and I think great. There's plenty of players coming over from Norway, Scandinavia, and whatever, and generally they seem to do really well. So looking forward to seeing him in the flesh.
Scored a couple of goals in Europe this season for Tromsø. Against Kilmarnock, I don't know, there's Scottish...
That's not saying a lot, isn't it?
No, Scottish Premier League, so, pinch of salt and all of that. Doesn't come with quite the fanfare that Lamine Fanne came with, particularly after we'd loaned Lamine back to AIK, his stock rose accordingly, didn't it? And you could barely move on a Saturday without some sort of recognition of what he's doing out there. Not got that here, but again, I stress that he's played for fourth from bottom in the Norwegian top flight, not one of the better sides like Lamine played in. But they must have seen something that they really like. And there's no real pressure on him to hit the ground running now that Eli stayed, is there? Because we've got Carlton, we've got Eli. He's probably going to begin as a bench player with the impression of building his way through, maybe to be a starter at the start of next season. So with that regard, we've got him at a good time. He's going to take a little while to get up to speed. But he did play 45 minutes in a friendly at the weekend, so he has played football. There seems to be a lot to like about this one.
There is and there isn't pressure, isn't there? Because the strikers aren't scoring and they need to, whether that adds competition and lights a fire under them and helps them out there. It's not really all their fault. There wasn't a lot created at the weekend either for them to get onto. And you're really only looking at that Millwall game where Carlton Morris had a couple of chances, half chances. But other than that, you'd expect that to change, wouldn't you, with Doughty back and the amount of chances he was creating before, and Tello Asgard playing as well. So we'll wait and see on that. But there is kind of a very pressing issue in the sense that we need points. And so it's all very well and good, the players coming in and sort of bedding it in, which you would expect, and particularly with foreign players anyway. But there needs to be some degree element of them hitting the ground, at least jogging, so we can get that. And it's not going to be perfect, all this. If it is, we'll be swinging from the rafters, won't it? We just need to get to a stage where we've got getting enough points that we pull away from that bottom three and make the end of the season relatively more comfortable, and then build. Because what they've done in the transfer window here is essentially rebuilt a side in mostly, 3/4 rebuilt a play inside, and then you go into summer and look again and see what you can do. That point you mentioned at the beginning about 2 windows, I think, I'd subscribe to that. So it is kind of a consolidation time thing here. You can't consolidate until you get out of that bottom three and start making life a bit more comfortable.
Well, that's it, isn't it? The future is really bright for this football club. Off the pitch, we've done that all the time and we'll continue to do that. And now it's bright on the pitch because we were a slightly aging squad, with Marvellous. You look down the spine of it with Marvellous, with Carlton, with Jordan Clark, Tom Lockyer when he was there as well. Kaminski's 33 as well, I think. It was an aging squad. But all of a sudden, pretty much everyone we signed permanently in this transfer window is 22, 23 or younger. So they're there. If we can get out of trouble, this team can blossom into a really good team by the time it walks out of Power Court, regardless of the division it's in. And if we get out of trouble this season, you can't see us going backwards from the summer. You can only see us going forwards because these players will have had 6 months in the Championship, those that haven't played in the Championship before, that is. And more reinforcements will come in the summer. So yeah, I'm really excited. But let's keep with Lasse at the moment. We're joined now by someone who knows a lot more about him because we're joined by Steve Wyss from the Because We Win Betting Weekly Studios, who is actually the co-host of the Nordic Football Podcast. Steve, thanks for joining us. What can you tell us about Lasse Nordås?
He's a very interesting player. I've been looking through some notes today because I knew I was going to be doing this piece. And I think there's good and bad points. I'm intrigued. I'm a bit surprised he's come to Luton Town, to be honest.
Surprised in a good way?
Sort of, I don't know, really. I just thought his next move might be somewhere in Scandinavia, really, because I don't know who's doing your recruiting here. I don't know what sort of position of need you actually are warranting right now, but I don't think really there's that many stats that back up the transfer, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you've looked at a few of them yourself. I've got a feeling I think there's been quite a gut feeling about this one, or he's been maybe scouted in person a few times because he is one of them players that I think he's better on the eye than he is in the metrics book, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So basically what you're saying, we're not signing the next Erling Haaland, no?
Well, he's about 2 meters tall nearly. Basically what you're getting is a target man, or I think you call them target forwards these days, or a wide sort of target man. He can play. He's got a strong left foot. He's really predominantly left-footed, so he can come and play on the left-hand side as like a winger, actually, which is a bit unusual in today's football, isn't it? Most of the wide players just come inside, but he's mostly at Tromsø been playing as a centre forward. Either in a 1 or a 2, often on the left-hand side of the pairing. He's a target man, really, who does have a decent left foot on his day, but has a knack, sadly, of missing chances and underachieving his XG. So that's an area he's going to have to improve, I think, at Luton.
You obviously follow the town a fair bit, Steve. We're good friends and I spout endless rubbish about the town to you, so you have to follow us even if you don't want to. So you know all about how the town play. I guess what people out there want to know is he going to be the man that gets on the end of those Alfie Doughty crosses?
Yeah, he can because, as I say, he's nearly 2 meters tall. And, I think he's scored quite a few headed goals. I was actually looking today at his split of left-footed shots, right-footed shots and headed attempts. And I think in the last calendar year, it was something like 60 with his left foot, 7 with his right foot. So he's not going to hit many goals with his right foot, but something like 23 with his head. So, yeah, he can be good in the air. He also can be used on that left-hand side if you wanted him to, and he can put some decent crosses in himself, perhaps. So, yeah, in that mould, he does actually fit the bill, I suppose.
You've seen Luton enough, Steve. You know what our strike forces are like. Got Carlton Morris, got Elijah Adebayo. Of the two, which one would you say Lasse's most like?
He's more similar to probably Adebayo, because I think Morris has got a bit more of a pace about him, a sort of an energy about him. Nordås is more of a back-to-goal sort of player. I mean, he's not completely dissimilar to Morris. But he can hold up the ball. He's quite strong physically. And, he's been playing up in Tromsø, which is inside the Arctic Circle. So he's going to be pretty acclimatized to our bad weather here. He's not going to be a softie sort of thing, if you know what I mean. He's quite mentally strong as well, because he's had quite a difficult route, I would say, to get where he has in the transfer thing. He's had quite a complicated background between his former club Bodø/Glimt and then Tromsø, who are big rivals. Didn't make the cut at Bodø/Glimt, but kind of made something of himself when he moved to their rivals. So I think you've got to give him credit for that.
Steve, is he a player that Luton are going to have to develop? Lots of Scandinavian players come over from there to England and cut it, but he's a young player, isn't he? And he's played in Norwegian youth teams. But how much of development is he going to have to take to get used to the Championship?
I think he needs to be coached to finish his chances better or make the final decision better. I mean, I think he's coming up. He's 23, I believe, in about 1 week time. So it's not the worst age to actually develop a player, is it? That is the big problem. Whenever I've watched him play, he just misses some big chances quite a lot. And I don't know what the problem is, whether, like I said, he's a predominantly left foot player. So maybe he's a bit choreographed and telegraphed in that way. Maybe just a good attack coach could get him to vary his finishing a bit more or make the right decision a bit more in that way. So I think he does need a bit of development and a bit of coaching. I certainly wouldn't expect him to be straight into the starting 11 at all. I wouldn't anyway, knowing your lineup. But give him a bit of time in the background to bed in, and he could be, quite a strong option. I'm interested to see how your new managerial setup and coaches might develop this player. I think there is a decent ceiling if you can get it out of him. I was just a bit surprised, really, that his next move was coming to England. I thought it'd be in Scandinavia.
Steve, how pacey is he?
Not overly, it's average, I would say, but not slow either. A rating out of 10, maybe I'd give him 6.5 or 7 out of 10 for pace.
Well, he's going to, I presume, take some weeks, or hopefully not too many weeks, to get up to speed, because the season's finished in Norway, isn't it? And his last game was somewhere in December. But was he back in any sort of training pre-season for Tromsø, or would he be coming to England fairly cold?
I think they've only just resumed their training, so this is basically like a player who's going to be starting back in July over here. So he will definitely take some physical preparation to get him into shape. I think the last league game was maybe the 1st of December off the top of my head. So yeah, there is that aspect as well. I think it's a signing that you guys are going to have to be a little bit patient with. I don't think he's just going to immediately come into the side and make an impact that way. But he's someone who could come along in the next few weeks. And I'm intrigued to see how he fits in with the new formation system that Bloomfield's got.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see where he fits into Matt's system. Another player who it will be interesting where he fits in, Steve, is Lamine Fanne Dabo, who we signed in the summer, but we're loaned back to AIK, and he joined us properly in January. He obviously qualified AIK for Europe in that last game for them at the end of last season. When I spoke to you when he signed, you said that he could play all of the midfield positions, but the last thing I expected him to do on debut was play as a number 10 at QPR, which is where we saw him. We saw him as a 6 on Saturday at Sheffield Wednesday, and he picked the ball up and he drove with it really, really well. But my question to you would be, if you were Matt Bloomfield going to Sunderland next Wednesday, where would you play Lamine Fanne in that midfield? Would you have him as a 6, an 8 or a 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going with a 4-3-3 now, right?
Yeah, it's fairly flexible. 4-3-3. Sometimes, depending on the situation, we move into a 4-2-3-1 as well.
I'd play him as the 8, really. I think I'd see him as a box-to-box midfielder. Sometimes people use the word Metsala as a role. That is definitely what he is. He sort of fits in the lines there and can cross the ball. And if you look at some of the assists he's had for AIK, he was just getting onto the edge of the penalty area and pulling the ball back. So he can drive forward really well. Big strength are his physicals, I think. This is a really good player, by the way. I think I could see him going really well in the future. Again, really young enough to mould however you want it to do. I think this guy's got the whole package, to be honest. And he can play in any role you want in that midfield. Now it's a question of what you want him to do. Or do you want him to be a Swiss Army knife? I don't know. That's a really good question, I think. You need versatile players, but also you want a player that has a definitive role occasionally, don't you? So, but yeah, I would say physical at the minute is his really good strength, and actually for his age, decision making and vision.
It's interesting that you have him as a box-to-box midfielder, Steve. So I guess we had Marvellous Nakamba on the bench on Saturday, but the ideal combination would be Marvin behind Lamine, I'm assuming.
Massively, yeah. 100%, I would agree with that. You had Nakamba there, then Lamine, and then maybe some sort of playmaker midfielder in the trio. That would go really well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, mate. Lamine, he's well thought of in Sweden, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good prospects come through from teams in Stockholm, and it didn't surprise me at all that he would get a move as soon as it was. And I really think this guy could become excellent if he can stay injury free, and you bed him into the player that you want him to be. I think come the end of the season, if he has enough minutes, I think you'll be really pleased with what you got.
Have injuries been a problem for him in the past then, Steve?
I think with all I think there was maybe a month that he had off. I can't remember exactly what month. But I think I was just saying that really is a general thing, really. You don't want someone that age to have a setback, do you? A big setback. But from what I know, I think he's got a pretty good, clean bill of health. So you're not got to worry. You've not signed a guy who's got a massive history of injuries, Jimbo. Don't worry.
That's good, because we've had plenty of that this season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the injury situation was because he went off at Notts Forest, but that was a nasty tackle, and he looks all right now. So fingers crossed that remains the case. Steve, we've taken up enough of your time, mate. Really appreciate you coming on, particularly as I know that I've grabbed you from your holidays. So do appreciate that. No doubt we'll touch base again in the future, because the town are clearly scouting in Scandinavia. We looked at Timothy Uma as well as the two that we've signed from that part of the world, didn't we? So I'm guessing it's something that we'll look at. And if we sign more players, we'll have you on again in the summer. But really, really appreciate your time, mate. Thanks a lot.
Not a problem. Take care, everyone.
So that gives us a little bit more meat on the bone with regards to Lasse Nordås, and indeed Lamine, Fanne, and Steve's very, very encouraging about Lamine in particular. He's probably more team ready now, isn't he? That was always the case anyway. But Lasse still sounds like a real good prospect for the future.
It sounds like it's going to be one that needs to be developed, but that's probably the case with a lot of Luton signings. Fanne may be the exception because he comes over from Sweden, basically being the best team and the best player in the league, if you listen to some of the people that we did, and all the rave reviews he was getting. And some of the things that he's done so far suggest that he can be that player. It's about transferring it to the English game and the Championship, of course. But for Lasse, I hope that he comes in, and he seemed a very confident lad from his interview. And if he can do all the things that he's saying there, then it could be a really good acquisition. We just it's just the unknown at the moment, isn't it? But we'll wait and see.
Just need someone to show him the way to Tesco's down by the airport, and all is good. Okay, that's it for the first part of the podcast. We're going to do a really, really long deep dive, so we've split them up. So we've just spoken about the transfers. Ian and obviously got the thoughts of Steve and everything on our newest signing. And in part two, we will look at one particularly sad departure, but all of the departures in January. And we'll cover some of your comments, a few of your questions, and we'll speak about Tony's impending exit from the trust.
I believe our supporters are the best supporters in the country.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and